I'll put on the intro.
You can hear me okay? Because I think I have the microphone down here.
No, I hear you fine.
Okay, great.
I hear you fine. Everything's great. Here we go. Hey, if we're still breathing and walking, everything's cool.
That's right. Let's see if I can get this set up now better.
Yeah, go ahead. Take your time. I'm going to see. We got 38 seconds into this. I'm going to play the intro. We'll be right back.
Sure.
In a minute and 19 seconds with Carmelina. Nice name.
Thank you.
Boom. How's it going, everybody? We got a new friend in the house, Carmelina. Oh, what happened to her? Here, I'll make this closer. It's harder for me to look at the screen. I wish I could remove my face. How are you doing? What a beautiful place.
Oh, thank you. It's my office.
Is that your, yeah, I just wanted to, I don't normally, this isn't a typical, not in a bad way, but it's not in a bad way of what it is or what it isn't, but it's not a typical, it's a talk show, but it's a conversation. So we don't really follow the normal protocol of some of the shows that you see out there, and that's okay. This is just our little lane in the Soul Highway. But I want to read, which I don't normally do. I want to read about you because you wrote me back in April, and it was interesting because it's very unique what you do. You say, I've been awake since I was a child, born in 1961. That's a good year. That's when I was born. And became a healer and expressive arts therapist. Expressive arts therapist. So we'll learn about that. It says, my expertise is in the field of autism, which I think is a big subject in the ascension period, especially when in regard to these kids, and post-traumatic stress, which is also something that I think probably all of us are familiar with in our own lives. I'm also an artist and writer and have been painting images of the divine feminine since the 80s and 90s. I would love to speak about art therapy, autism, and living in the fifth dimension, and how we can make the transition easier. So yeah, you're among friends. This is where all the crazy people come. And we've realized that we're not crazy anymore. And but it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So are you in the States?
I am in Connecticut.
Okay. So it's, oh, that's nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's a nice area. I stayed up there for a while, a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, like, this is pretty unique. You said you've been, for instance, doing these artistic expressions of the divine feminine since what? Was it the 90s?
Well, I've been an artist, since I was a child, but yeah, it was in the 80s, actually 70s. Actually, even in the late 70s, I was painting images of the divine feminine, sort of, channeling through like a conduit. I believe all artists are conduits. So that's what started coming through, leading the way. I did some divine male within, very, very few, though. Mostly they were just coming out like paintings of goddesses and the muses and angels and fairies and, the realm of the elementals and spiritual divine beings,
So this is, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. There was a
and
flag.
goddesses.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, how does this happen? I mean, because, the harmonic convergence was in 87, and we've had people on here that have been awake, since the womb, memories of the womb, memories of planetary incarnations and other things. But to be downloading or connecting to even and knowing what it is in the 90s or this period of time that you're talking about when this started, that's pretty interesting.
Child,
The divine, yeah.
And even as a child, I was going to say, I was sort of awakened child. So I was asking a lot of questions, and I kind of knew things and didn't have descriptions for them. So I had a lot of older friends that gave me lots of bits of wisdom too, but wasn't very many books back then. Even, out about things, I had to go to the library and, order the books from another library, like from the New York Public Library, that get sent. But yeah.
So you're doing it old school, no internet. Yeah. The processing time was much longer back then, I would imagine, because you couldn't get your download, then go look for it on the internet to see if it was accurate.
I just have back to you in a couple of days on that, or next weeks, So yeah, that's.
So can you hear me? Uh-oh, your signal's low. She'll be back. Oh, there she is. There, you're back. You're back. Your signal dropped a little bit.
All right.
So when you start receiving this in the 80s, 90s, or whenever, and there's not really the internet's not really up and running as it was, like, say, 2012. Were you getting information from these aspects that were basically, channeling through you, as you are the conduit, were they giving you messages?
Through dreams.
Okay.
Child, since I was very little, my mom will tell you about it. Since I was like 3 years old, I would tell my dreams, and they would go on and on. They would have the lion would roar, the MGM lion would roar in between different scenes, and they were like movies. And so yeah, I actually did get a lot of messages and meet a lot of teachers, I will say, divine teachers in the dream time when I was young and throughout time.
Wow.
But yeah,
and
that mostly.
So, like, what were the who brought you to the party?
Who brought me to the party? Well, I remember now a friend of mine passed away. She was an expert on Mary Magdalene, Gloria Amendola. She at the time I was about 16, 17, and I was looking for someone to be a dream interpreter so I could understand what the dreams meant. And she brought me to her teacher, her spiritual teacher at the time. And so she became one of my teachers. Her name was Grace Lisa Jones. And then she brought me to her teacher at Buddington, and they taught me about light bending and about Tibetan Buddhism and about the third eye and all of the things that you can now find and people are very interested in.
Yeah.
So that was where I kind of felt, all right, now I'm finally found someone who understands, and they've been studying names for these things,
Yeah. What is light bending?
Oh, well, could probably get a physicist to tell you better, but what I'm talking about with light bending is, I believe we all have a lot of abilities that we haven't tapped into. We because we're limited, because we're programmed or sort of put in the box, we don't have the capacity to even understand what we're able to do. And I can tell you that even working with a lot of folks in autism, that they have abilities that are beyond what we will call normal senses, just amazing things. And, we all have these abilities. So the power of invisibility, that's for the light bending, you know, and I used to experiment with that and be in a room, and maybe people were just ignoring me, but I felt like I was really invisible. Who knows? I feel like I've had cars go right through my car. I've had people in the car that have experienced it with me, where a truck will go right through my car and I'm okay. And it's like another dimension. It's like, and I believe that's kind of, you know, the Mandela effect, that we have that ability to actually shift small things into another whole parallel reality, because every thought creates billions of possibilities. Every choice we make, with the one choice we make, there's still all those other thousands of, you know, millions of, however, possibilities of choices that become worlds. But where our attention is where that world is. So,
this is, yeah. Yeah, let's dig into this a little bit. Because yeah, this whole thing that what's happened to this point, like, you know, I'm just saying, like, what is today? What year is this? What month? July 27, 2021. We're in the middle of well, we're almost at the end of the 7th month of what's been an incredible year, after 2020 was, as one person put it that came on the show, more people awoke in 2020 than the previous 10 years, which was a huge wake up period. But 2021 has been, you know, it seems to have been, is what I gained through these shows. It's been a year of integration and a lot of revelation. I think there's been certainly a lot of energy created by people doing the work. And that's not that sounds all, you know, fairy tale and puppy doggish and, you know, fluffy love and light. But what I'm trying to say is that what you're talking about in actually several things that you're bringing up are in such a new light today. Like, for instance, what you're describing is light bending. I've talked to people that have told me the same thing. It's not talked about enough. I don't know that we have enough, let's just say, practitioners or masters, but there are people that are touching it and then, of course, talking about it. And I think that's important. But the thing that you said that I'd love to dive into is what we believe. And I know this sounds cliche, but we're seeing things so different every day. But what we believe is what we create. You know, there's been a lot of talk about getting your soul aspects back. And we've kind of moved away, I think, from, you know, what is it? The secret, the law of attraction. Not that it's not there, but there's like a whole different meaning to all these different things.
yes.
But the bottom line is, what do I believe? And how am I affecting my reality? And now that we've moved into an age where we are no longer, or, you know, it's fading, we're no longer associating with externalities, or we're associating less externalities being the initiator of our experience. And we're starting to understand that it is actually ourselves. It's never them, it's always me. Whatever my circumstances are a result of my thoughts.
Correct.
And as we continue digging through these layers that shroud our soul, which we're unconscious of, which are blind spots, it becomes more and more of a reality. And it's very weird and it's very strange, but it actually works. But now just tell me what you think. Because like I said, this is a conversation, but there seems to be a direct link between, how do I say this? From our own standpoint, from our own perspective as creators, as we remove the blame, and I guess, for lack of a better word, the responsibility from our perspective that others are initiating and creating this experience for us, when we take full responsibility, I think there's a direct link to the level of magic we can attain.
Absolutely.
I don't know, what, you've been doing this a lot longer than me. Tell me what your thoughts are on that, if you don't mind.
Wrong about that. What you see is what you believe is what you receive. So it's time to create what you want to achieve. You know, when we're together, we can move mountains. We can take flight. And so what we believe is what we receive, and that's really always been that way. I believe a lot of masters always knew this, and what we believe is what we receive. It was probably what was in the Egyptian schools of mastery and all of the the mystery schools or the secret societies, and these are very simple, absolutely surround us, the geometry and numbers, and the mathematical perfection of the soul, and the spiral, our energies in the spiral, it's a sphere,
Yeah.
and the spiral makes the torus, and it's everywhere. It's in our cells, it's in space. So yes, we are masters of our mind, we're masters of our soul, really. It's again, I believe, if you look at time and history, the way that we have come from the dark ages and into a renaissance, this is exactly what we're doing right now. The 50s were a time of the dark ages. We were asleep, and we were asleep as a culture, and a lot of people still asleep. And we're coming into the Renaissance, and I believe, and I've always believed, that I'm here to help create this new Renaissance, the new earth, or the heaven on earth, or always in my head, like, here to lead the moon, lead the star children.
Yeah.
I was supposed to, like, the moon mother. When I was little, I made this stuff up, but it's not really.
Yeah. Little did you know that was reality.
Exactly.
I was talking to somebody about this a couple of days ago. You still there?
Here.
It's the energy. Oh yeah. I remember 10 years ago, like when I woke up, 10 plus years ago. And one of the things that I heard was, or felt, however you describe that, was that this isn't over until the last lost, straggling, struggling soul comes home. Now, I know that a lot of the stuff we receive, you can't take in literal terms because it's such a, standalone specific being a human. And you can't really be a human today without considering all the other stuff that we haven't considered, right? And I've heard other people say that. I've heard other people say, I'm not, we're all coming home, I'm staying. I think, because when I was talking to the person, they were like, I've never resonated with that. I said, I don't know that it's literal, but there's some type of something, because enough people have said something like that, like you're saying. And maybe it was more of a, like a human description of what was being received. But the bottom line being that something big is going on. Something very unique is going on, regardless of what's been prophesied and written 2,000 years ago in sacred books about this time. And to me, that's the emphasis. The emphasis is, well, maybe that came into me and other people to kind of propel the momentum, because, as you know, many people, when they came out, they kind of stand out, especially with their family and friends, as they go like, hey, there's something going on, and then everybody, kicks you out of the family and all that stuff. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you have a perspective. It looks like you kind of saw what was coming. Were you getting specific information as to this period of time, what we might call this transition, ascension, or were you awakening or global awakening? I mean, were you getting that years before?
Yes, I believe I was. I believe, and I'm an artist. I call myself a visionary expressionist, because I believe we're really heart-centered. But I've got messages from the spirit. I got messages from within, mostly within. And what I did at the time was I started writing fairy tales and poetry. I used to think in poetry a lot, rhyming poetry, lyrical poetry. So things would come to me in poetry form, and I was writing fairy tales. I started writing them when I was in my teens. I still write them. Actually, they're developing into different things now, different products. I'm writing one of them into a musical opus. But for
Wow.
example, one of the poems, like the first fairy tale I wrote, was called "The Wondermentals of Life and Death," which is. But one of the characters in that fairy tale spoke in rhyme, and they would come to me. It would just sort of come out. It was the old typewriters, and it would just kind of flow out. But the poetry of the fool said to me, You must understand our imponderable glory as you have been chosen for imparting our story in depiction of the spiritual world. You will bring to light restraint unfurled in a silver thread of revelation, tying all things in inspiration, presaged by truth and infinite compassion will renew in earnest fashion. Their true heart and have thee no fear. If fate calls upon you, believe it sincere. Answer to question, heed the advice. Your intuitive thought will not always suffice. So that's the kind of messages I would get. They would be like these cryptic and enigmatic rhyming messages, which were really cool. And I just put them into a fairy tale form and painted the figure, started painting. That's probably how they started coming through my painting.
Hmm.
You know, as a teenager, I was writing fairy tales, and archetypal figures were, I was seeing in myself, I was seeing them in others, but they were really speaking to me.
Wow. So you were getting the image and the story, and you said a favorite thing for me, which is the word fairy tale, because, you know, part of this awakening for everybody, you know, because the typical, I say not typical, I mean, there's traumas in individual lives that wake people up and such, but one of the things I think that wakes people up is, or part of the process is in the beginning, disclosure type topics, right? You know, you start to go, wait a minute, truth is stranger than fiction. And we can get into all that. We don't need to. But there's a flip side to that. From the same perspective where truth is, you know, fiction is now truth. So fairy tales, I'm a big lover of history and mythology, and fairy tales are the real deal.
Oh yes, absolutely.
They're the real deal. They store fairy tales, myths, you know, oral traditions, stories, that they carry the real code, don't they?
Absolutely. And Leonardo da Vinci had to do it with his paintings. I mean, it's been done probably throughout time, and that's kind of how I feel too, that there are codes, if you want to call them light codes, people call them, but I know they're, you know, they're primary vibrational frequencies that we need to heal. So they're coming through my art. I know they're coming through my song. I'm a singer songwriter, and I have someone do the music, and then I close my words through these songs that I feel to have the same capacity to help people, to bring joy or to inspire, or, you know, wake people up, you know, to bring joy rather than to the attention to the suffering, you know.
Yeah, that's such a big thing too, because, you know, and we talk about it every day on this show, you know, and maybe we don't have a choice. Maybe this thing's just, you know, at the end of the day, bigger than all of us, and it's going to do what it wants to do. We can call that thing Mother Universe or whatever, nature, whatever we want to call it. But there's this ongoing dichotomy, right? There's an ongoing altering landscape, which is first and foremost affected by our own belief systems, but in the visualization or in the physical experience of this unfolding, you have this distorted narrative that's been, you know, offered up, suggested, whatever you want to call it. This has been the norm. We're going to present this to get this reaction, and it's all about division and fear and so on and so on, right?
Right.
So you have that, and then you have these incredible personal journeys that are superseding any and all things.
Yes.
That the ultimate objective or destination of that personal experience that supersedes all the distortion,
Yes.
because of its intensity, that ultimately what it is kind of a you know, let's have a come to Jesus meeting with yourself. Let's have a conversation with the universe, just you and the universe, one-on-one, cut the bullshit and get real with yourself. And that's pretty scary, because there are things that we've accumulated over these incarnations that we have shared in ancestral lineage, cycles, loops, patterns, There is, of course, the things that have happened in what seems to be a summary life in terms of energetic intensity this time around, especially if you're born in 1961, I might add, as you were. But so there's this whole thing playing out, and it's pretty radical. The information, the ability to take in information, the rate we take it in has seemed to reverse and expand, like we're learning like babies. And at the same time, there is a human aspect that's front and center of our multidimensionality that will not be ignored, that will not be subjugated. It won't be put in the back seat. It's an equal player, and it's weird because on one end you got the human, on the other end you got the higher self, and you have all these in between. And half of them are, let's just say, multidimensional aspects, and the other half are human aspects that have been birthed out of necessity through trauma, and I need to dissociate, or I need to get into an addiction, or whatever the case is. And there's this crossroads, and it is a beautiful chaos. And I think that you must have a pretty good beat on it because of the fact that you work with specifically PTSD. And something I'd love to get into as well in a bit, the autism. Absolutely. Because these kids are not some byproduct of a damaged world. They are actually alien among those who don't know their gods, right? I mean, I don't know. That's a lot I just said, but your thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, well, to talk about the autism there, I did have one autistic girl tell me that she believed that she was indigo, that indigo was that they were that the color of the aura, that indigo color coming in, which I guess is the third eye color, right? So of that frequency, I guess if they did that Carillion photography, they would be able to prove that, scientifically, that they have this primarily indigo aura color. I'm not sure, but there's definitely something in that, and something really divine about all of us, and the divinity in all of us. And one of the things that really hit me about autism when I first started working with people was just melting the judgment that we have when you look at someone, to make a judgment, which we all do, but to recognize that, there's so much more to each one of us, so many aspects to us, and that to manifest our divinity, to bring out our highest potential, or individuate, right? You still want to be the best version of yourself, or there's a lot of different ways to say that, but to individuate, to really to find what you love, to do what you love, or love what you do, to love who you are without judgment. The only a lot of pain from the autistic community is other people judging them, but they don't have that judgment. They don't see that. They see who you are. They see through your eyes into your soul. You look into the person's eyes. You look into your own eyes. You look into your own eyes, you can see all the different sides of yourself too. And when I do a lot of mirror work with my clients, just to say a different message into those eyes, into those people. Go past the face, go past the pimples, go past the whatever, those boxes, those limitations that you feel you have or you really do have, and go in to the soul, which is not the same as the spirit of Carmelina Mosher. My soul is something much deeper, and this is just one part of that. So it's my vehicle for this life, and I know that's not, that I'm more than that, and that's I visualize it. But the soul comes through, in so many ways, but most people don't allow it in their lives, except they maybe go to church, or the love from the depth of their soul. It's a tough one. It's hard to, it's hard for people because of the religious dogma that gets in the way sometimes. And then the religious explanation, which are great too. The explanation, or what you believe. It's all about what you believe divinity is, or what life is. But the other thing about autism and disabled is there's just so much love. so pure, you
Yeah.
know, just such a pure love and vibrational frequency. And I believe that as a um, we'll call them indigo, as a wave of indigo beings that are now with us, that they're actually changing our DNA.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All of our DNA, and it's becoming what crystalline is the word, but that makes sense to me because, you know, we have to, out of this three-dimensional, or out of the fourth dimensional, we're still sort of getting into the fourth, you know, but like the experience of the bending light thing is actually just a little higher dimensional thing where you can make a different outcome from one. You can experience both and choose which one. You know, that's kind of the level of the higher dimensions. I believe that they're doing, the autistic community is doing it, and I believe we can all do it.
Absolutely. You know, there's credible intel from people that are credible for years and years that talk about, you know, they tell them the stories a different way, but they're really all saying the same thing. But you know, and of course there's all these, you know, 8 billion different experiences, you know, and people have different ways of experiencing this, what we're talking about in terms of, let's just say, the avenue to opening up abilities such as light bending, and some of these other things you're talking about. And one of the things that seems to be at the core of it all, and maybe it is the way to describe it as the core from the human perspective, is the self-love. Because the bottom line is, and I'm going to connect this back to the autistic thing, but the bottom line is that we really treat people as a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And, you know, I wake up some mornings because I get a lot of messages and a lot of comments, and I wake up some mornings and I'm being projected on. And I think we can all relate to that.
Yes.
Now, it's a fine line because I can in turn project in my response, which I'm just basically perpetuating the energy of externalization.
Correct.
Or I can practice what I preach. You know, I can walk the talk. I can say, oh, that's what that is. I'm going to leave that there. You know, and so what I'm getting at is that there is an innate understanding in place in ourselves where we hold ourselves in the stature, reverence, and esteem that we have beheld what is God, what is the goddess, you know, and so on. But it's in us. Now, the reason I brought that up is because 35 years ago, I was, you know, young and trying to establish myself, and I went and substitute taught at the local public school one day. That was it. And it wasn't because of this experience, because it was actually an extraordinary experience that I didn't understand. And what happened was they put me in a special ed room to work with one student all day long. And it was a student, and I didn't even know anything about autism, but I found out later there's different degrees, right? There's some you see very open and some you can't see as well. Well, this was obviously like about probably an 8-year-old, and it was pretty severe. You know, his arms were moving and, you know, that type of thing. But what happened was I went through, because it was literally, here, you go work with this kid. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, you know, like, how do I, because it wasn't a typical communication, right. Yeah. But there was something obvious in his eyes. And after about 2 hours of, I don't even know what we're doing, like trying to put pegs in holes and, you know, things like that, something clicked. And I spent the rest of the day with this kid, basically communicating in a language that must have been innate within me, but was ignited or initiated by his natural nature.
Yes.
And I walked away going, holy crap, what did I just experience? And still 35 years later, yes. I don't even know. But what you're talking about is what I must have touched on in that experience. And Do you see the autistic having I don't know, a better hold of telepathy? I mean, what is that?
Uh,
What is the upside that we're missing because we're lost in the programming of the world, looking at them as an affliction?
yeah, very interesting, right? Yeah, so some autistic folks that I've worked with are very telepathic. You can write something on a piece of paper, fold it up, and they will tell you what's on it. They will tell your future like a psychic will. Um, Other things like one guy was like the Rain Man. Actually, literally, I would give him 6-digit numbers to multiply, and he would give me the exact thing, and I'd be there with the calculator, and it was mind blowing.
Mm.
Just but he couldn't tie his shoe. So so I believe, it's hard. It's hard to know. Maybe we don't have the capacity yet to even understand. So it's hard to even figure that out. But it's something to do with our abilities. Obviously, it's something to do with maybe the power of our brain, or something to do with consciousness, which is not even measurable. Um, it's definitely something with bioenergetics, because it's changing us. Our DNA is changing. It's happening on a field, on the etheric field, on the atomic level. Um, it's happening to to our cells on a cellular level, just like when we change a thought, you know, or when we learn something new, like you were saying before, we're kind of here and now we're expanding. Every time we learn something new, we have to expand to hold what we learn, so we just keep expanding more and more and more. And they're way more expansive than we are. We have to catch up that way, number one, just to stop judging. Just start with yourself.
Yeah.
Stop judging yourself. Stop judging everyone you see. See them all as divinity. Like Namaste, I bow to the light within you, within someone else, recognizing the light in ourselves. That puts you right into that, that Abraham calls the vortex, that place
Yeah,
of joy.
yeah, yeah.
That
I like that description when she talks about that.
bringing joy is, finding joy. I mean, it's what I do as a therapist with my clients, helping people find their joy, find their passion, to pursue it. If you can't do what you love, then try to love what you do. Find a different way to look at it. You know,
Hmm.
but the joy element. Um, I had a dream about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that I was on an airplane, and I was sitting next to this old man, and he turned and he looked at me and he said, "Sing joy to the world." And so I started singing, joy to the world. And he's like, "No, no, 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 sing joy to the world." But that was it. That was the only thing. So after that, I wrote a song about joy and started a program called Play with Grace, which is a theater program for autistic and disabled adults.
Far
And
out.
we write original music. They come up with an archetype character, and find the message that character wants to give to the world, and then we put it in song form, and we all perform together. We have volunteers, and the whole group will sing, but each person as a star will have their own song that they sing, as a solo, in a
Mm.
performance. And so I feel like I was fulfilling that dream urge, which was, sing. I've had a lot of messages like that, but this was one I really feel like I'm manifesting. I have manifested that now, that singing joy to the world, because the songs are, I have a rule that we keep out all the negative words. So it's all, you know, um, just say the opposite of the negative thought, transform it. That transformational aspect is what's behind the theater. It's a psychodrama technique. Um, but we do performance theater rather than just doing it in the closed door privately, psychodrama, working out problems about, within, with the different characters within, or having people represent aspects of our characters without. But at the Play with Grace, we do, it's such a program of joy that everybody who comes just feels the joy, that you
Mm.
can see it in their face, and they're on Broadway. To them, it's Broadway, and it's wonderful. It's just one of the, again, light codes going through the songs, their messages of joy and hope to the world going into the songs too. So it's a co-creation of the group and the star and myself, and and then that lives on, and it continues as a vibrational frequency to go out to the world. And I believe it just continues to go. And so right now, that's one of my favorite ways, my favorite arts to use is the singing songwriting aspect.
Yeah, that says so much too, because I keep thinking about this kid, and there was something about this kid. It was almost like effervescent, right? Like it was bubbling over, like his energy. And I didn't even know what energy was back then, but I mean, his energy was like it was spilling out. I you know what I mean? Because I could see joy, excitement. Oh God, what's the other word that was coming through? It was like I can't. There was some. What was that?
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, there was. Yes, absolutely. There was that, but there was something. There was something in that kid's energy, because at the time I was reading. This was like 22, 23, 24, and I was already reading metaphysics and looking like what many of us have. So, but there was something about this kid, to me, if I had to put it into words now, that in his energy was, I guess, in an energetic form, sacred wisdom, like
Yes.
natural nature, like order, uh, and here we are in the backdrop of this physical, heavy, dense realm where I'm looking at what I thought was order, right? Which is really controlled and constricted, and this kid represents that free flow, free energy type of design that was such an interesting experience, because you try to fit that energy into a world that has all these round holes with the round pegs, and here comes a peg that's got a square peg,
Yes.
and you try to fit him into or her into this, and it doesn't work. But you're holding this energy in your hand, and you go, wait a minute, there's magic here. There's something here. The paradox again. What you think you see is absolutely the opposite of what you're actually before. So this
Yeah.
thing that you're talking about with the performance, again, going back to the Abraham Hicks thing, that is a vortex. So
Yes.
what a powerful vortex to have, a handful of these incredible individuals and some facilitators to create this offering of an energetic imprint. And I agree with you. I think that whatever we put out there lives on and will expand or not based on who latches onto it, as an experience to expand it again.
Yes. Absolutely.
This sister says, my daughter is labeled with developmental disability. She has taught me so much. And
They live
what
in
a, yeah.
how to be now, and that's part of it too. How do we, that book, Be
Yeah.
Here, how do we enjoy each moment and like get rid of all of those conflicts? You're talking about this fellow that you were working with who didn't seem to have all of that stuff all around.
Mm-mm.
Very sleep,
Mm-mm.
very much in the moment, very much experiencing every little aspect with all of the senses, and that's what we have to get to too. I'm sure that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time, stop rushing, so much chaos. Like you said, it's a way to bring order, to be in the moment all the time. It's always
Yeah.
our powers in the now. It's powers in the moment.
I think that's what that kid taught me that day, because I remember the first couple hours thinking, how in the hell am I going to do this all day? But through his energy, now that I think about it, and I'd say forced, as I tried different things and those didn't work through the process of elimination, the only thing left was to be present with this kid in not even in the moment, in the second, because it
Yes,
was such a fast moving kind of thing,
absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's a great,
They're
yeah,
here to teach us. They are here to teach us. We know that
yeah.
our teacher and everything is our teacher, whether it's an
Mm.
illness or a person. But certainly the autistic community is here to teach us, and the autism spectrum is, there's a wide variety of it where it can goes from I've had bosses and people in my past that I've known who have been on the spectrum, And then I've worked with the very severe that don't speak, um, and I've worked with a lot of people, not just autistic, but disabled people who don't have the words, they're mute and not able to express. And let me tell you, it's one thing that made me realize how images are so powerful. When we're born with images. We don't have the words yet until
Mm.
we're taught what the words are. You know, this is a cup, this is a window. You know, we don't know the words yet, but we have the images already because we're dreaming. We didn't have the language yet when we're born. We can say we don't. We're pretty sure we don't. So we're dreaming all with images. And then once we get the words kind of get in the way. So the people who come in here without words end up really getting to the deep work, you know. And I've
Yeah.
had people actually be able to start talking again, whether they were mute, literally from birth,
Wow.
mute, and start speaking again, start speaking full sentences again in a very short amount of time. So
Wow.
it's
That's, I want to ask you a question about autism and PTSD in a minute. But yeah, I just had a thought when you were talking about that. I can't remember. I lost it, but I'll get it back. So you've worked with autism, and that's a lot. I mean, that brings a whole lot to the table. I don't know anything about it, but what I told you, but that was enough to impact me. Here I am 35 years later talking about it a little bit. But is and PTSD, I think, has been a big subject. I think there was a time, and certainly there are experiences that are proportionate to a person's life, and I understand that. I I believe that everybody's pain is the same. It's just proportionate to their life experience. It just doesn't look that way in the spectrum. But having said that, PTSD a lot bigger than we all thought. In other
absolutely
words, we hear about it uh, with war veterans and trauma survivors, but when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of this thing, this whole effing trip has been full of what the human might call traumas as catalysts to get us into that space where these incredible individuals live in that you work with. But is there in your experience, because I'll never get a chance to ask this question probably to anyone else who's got this type of makeup. Is there any type of connection to you between autism and PTSD? And the reason I say that is because when you were just describing a minute ago uh, how the autistic person who, let's just say, is mute, who through this development all of a sudden starts speaking. Now, I just wonder, well, does it work in reverse? Will the normal people who are exposed to this energy learn how to speak from, you know what I mean? You know
right.
what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Learn nonverbal communication.
Hmm.
I'm sure it can. And as far as PTSD and autism being related, I imagine that there's probably, and I'm not an expert in the field of neurology, but I'm sure that there's something similar with, you know, that's in the brain, the neurology of the brain, where some parts are working more and some parts are working less, you know. And one thing I do know about the arts is that the arts and music, any kind of arts, will bypass those dysfunctional places in the brain and actually repair damage that's there. So, you know, if it's used in the right way, you know. And I evidently it's obviously scientifically, that's absolutely been proven that music and the arts can do this kind of things to our body. They can heal our body. Um, so I believe that it can do that with the brain as well. The methods of working are a little bit different. That working with post-traumatic stress, you know, women or men that have suffered with PTSD, maybe somewhat of a different way of working with them, um, in terms of replacing beliefs. You know, with PTSD, that's part of the thing you have to really get to, is get through that experience, process that experience, and um, and then be able to look at it in a different way, to be able to see it in a different way. Like everything as a teacher, like, well, what was good that came? Of course, you can't talk about it right now, what's good about it. They're not going to be able to go there because they're still in that negative. But when the time comes where, or why did that happen? Or what does it mean? they can tell you, each person can tell you what that is, because why are some people traumatized by one thing and some aren't? Because it's our life experience that affects us that way when a trauma comes to us. And then what does it take to heal it? It's different for every single person. And autism is even more individualized. I mean, it's even more individualized because every person is so unique. Every autistic person I've met is so different. It's not the same. I can't work the same way. I have to deal with the energy. It's the energy for me personally, when I work with autistic or disabled or anyone now, I've learned how to read the energy first. When they come to me, what are the energies? Sometimes I'll feel something in my body, like I'll be a little swimmy head or a little stomach pain or heart palpitations. That's my indication of where they are. But just for me.
Wow.
I have to read the energy and see where they are. What am I feeling? And you'll know, because there'll be some discomfort if you go somewhere where they're not. So they have to guide me. And so everyone who comes through my door guides me. But I believe that everyone who comes through my door is here to be guided, and they're ready. And if
Right.
they don't come back again.
Or
you know,
you're ready. Right. Like,
always.
I mean, this is such a trip because, God, there's so many things we could jump into. We will, but, it's so the PTSD thing. We've all, I think, so many of us, whether we knew it or not, I mean, it's there. That's what we labeled it, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
to me, this PTSD type of thing, it really, I guess, in another way to put it would be it alters your lenses. It's a set of glasses that's not accurate, right? I mean, like it actually influences your perception of things, and they can be a lot bigger, scarier, and uglier than they really are
Yes.
because of that experience. How do you equalize and turn that quote unquote weakness into a strength? How does somebody take all of this, pain, suffering, trauma, and convert that into a superpower?
Well, many times it's to help other people later once they're healed, for
Mm,
sure. Getting through there, just hey, there is light on the other side, you know. But the post-traumatic stress cultural thing, for sure, it's a really an epidemic. Low self-esteem is an epidemic, and certainly with even this whole pandemic being the 9/11, different things, and people in the world, not just in America but all over the world. There's places where they're affected by major post-traumatic stress. And yes, it's a filter, it's a pair of glasses, but it's a movie that we're bringing with us, isn't it? Like we're not experiencing the moment anymore when we're so much in the trauma. We're seeing through the filter of that trauma. So everything's either a reminder of it, or smells like that reminds me of it, or that's a trigger. One of the things I do is help people recognize that triggers are everywhere. You
yeah,
can't just avoid triggers your whole life. You have to recognize that a trigger can be changed. Your association with it changes. Just
yeah,
like Christmas, change your Christmas. It's been terrible Christmases. It had really very, very, a lot of depression that happens during the holiday. But let's look at it differently. Let's find a different way to celebrate that holiday that will make it different. And then suddenly the association changes. That's really specific and maybe too simple, but, it's about taking that experience and, however many times you want to roll through it and retell it, because that's part of it. Tell the story. You got to have witnesses. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. Primarily, that's our need. As children, as adults, we need to be seen. We need to be heard. So the post-traumatic stress, I need you to hear me. I need you to see me. And I want to make this part of my life. I want to move on to something new. And in order to do that, I've got to process it enough to say, okay, now I can let it go, because I see that it was whatever. And again, it's not, you can't see the good in it until much later. But I do believe that it's a shift in our beliefs. I kind of look at it as a room with furniture. So we have some furniture in there that's not serving us. It's old, it's beat up, it's, it just reminds me of just that terrible day or whatever it was, but it's in there, and but I can't just get rid of it without putting a new piece of furniture in its place. So instead of looking at that piece of furniture that reminds me of that terrible day of 9/11, I'm going to put in something else, another piece of furniture that represents painting now is my new passion, or something like, for example, so developing something that's a soul expression is very important, both for autism and for post-traumatic stress. What is something you love that expresses your
Okay, so
art?
kind of like a chop wood, carry water type of thing, but it's specifically something innate in you that will, like your channel, your own personal channel, when you're in alignment, say free will, universal will, as a non-verbal, non-instructional type of path to alignment. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
That must be, I wonder if, because I've met a lot of people, I was just thinking about this last night. I know we'll be at 3,200 shows at the end of the year based on our,
Wow.
our average over the past, but, so we're right at 3,000 shows. But a lot of people that have come on this show have out of nowhere developed a creative ability that combines inspiration with sacred wisdom, you know what I mean, and these frequencies that are here that are trying to expand and are expanding through us, such as with these autistic souls. So, somebody going, I have a friend in India, Gayatri, she sent me her dragon cards, which I don't use cards, but I actually like them very much. But so she's bouncing along, been aware for many, many years. And this is a very common story. I saw my friend Marita on here from Portugal. Same thing happened to her. And all of a sudden, they start downloading this information. And she's done these individual paintings of these dragons that are communicating with her in great detail, and never been an artist before.
Yes.
These things that are happening, such as that, I mean, what's your experience over the last couple of years? Are you seeing an increase in this type of thing, or anything that energetically follows it with people?
Absolutely. In the last few years, I've realized that people were waking up, and I got so excited. I'm still so excited, that people are there doing the dancing and doing the drumming and getting back into cultural diversity, getting brought in. And uh, so one of the things I was going to say too is I'm focusing on healers right now who serve, and people who have been working with others and trying to help the healers to charge up, and developing a company called Eyes of Wings Healing Arts Center. I have sort of a center here in my garden that I created. In this office, I actually designed
My
it.
friend, our friend Bella Improviso. I can't pronounce. Yeah, but Bella. She just sent me a note a second ago. She said that what did she say? She danced in your garden.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, you know her. I have
Yes.
sung in Carmelina's garden.
Yes, she has.
Yeah, natural building. Is that you? Oh no, that's something else she sent me. Yeah, very nice.
So I started a small retreat center here. I started building it 15 years ago just for myself, and was going to sort of be a model for a future thing. And then just recently, I started with a group of women. We were starting a program called Eyes of Wings Healing Arts Center, and looking for like maybe 20 or 25 acres to sort of build something even bigger to allow everyone to heal. At this point, we're focusing on healers. We're having social gatherings in the garden and having everybody share a little bit of their wisdom. And maybe some experiential stuff to sort of charge up. Because what I've noticed is that a lot of earth angels, I call them earth angels, they walk into my office and they're burnt out. They're low self-esteem. They're stressed, post-traumatic, they have crisis in their life. They've got, the psychic energy vampires coming from all different directions. And so I've noticed that over the last few years. That's one of the things. So I've focused on helping to tap into those deeper things. So yes, I'm sort of guiding that. I see more of that for sure because I'm connecting with more people now who are on the path, which is wonderful. But yeah, I do believe that because we're exponentially moving, time is collapsing, right? So if
Yeah.
it collapses, then everything's now. And so that means that things can happen really quick and exponential. You know, what with the technology in 100 years can be done in 10 years. Then it goes to, can be done in 1 year. So, and then 1 minute. And so isn't it the same with us? So yes, I think we can. It's not the same. We don't have to wait as long for things. We can put it out into the field of vibration and trust that, just like an old Sears catalog, we know it's coming. We just don't know when. You put the
Yeah. Well, you know, that's interesting too, because over the years doing the show and just, you know, being involved in these communities the last 10 years, there was a lot of talk about this time. In that window, there was a lot of talk about and a lot of channelings and downloads and posts regarding this time that I would say probably has occurred sometime between middle of last year and now. You know, once the COVID kind of set in and that the influence or addition of people being a vast majority of people being self-introspective out of their normal 9 to 5 and all the things that came as a result of the byproducts of enforcing whatever quarantine. But so there's this time that we've come to where people have forecasted a great divide, instant manifestation, or a more accelerated gap between imagination and actual creation of something. Be careful what you ask for. I mean, what I'm watching and watching carefully, first and foremost in myself, is those things that are what we call manifesting, those circumstances, those consequences, those situations. Where am I at today and how am I looking at it? And it's interesting because when you bring up manifestation, I find that another way to put it is, well, we're becoming responsible co-creators versus unconscious co-creators.
yes.
But there seems to be a litmus test. And that litmus test is, where am I at? How do I feel? What's my opinion? And really, at the end of the day, how much of my situation am I externalizing? And let's just put it in harsh human terms. How much am I blaming on other people?
Yes.
Because what I've noticed in doing these shows is that you can have a person, I've seen it, a person can have, let's say that we're made up of 100%. They can have 90, I don't know, 95% of like this attuned high level frequency, understanding, alignment, equilibrium, and even in 3% or 5% of their makeup have total unconscious programming that basically cuts the knees off of everything else that they have.
Right.
And it's amazing because on let's just say on Monday, I can be Superman, right? And then on Tuesday, my world gets changed as only it can in this period of time, particularly the last year and a half, because all truth changes. All truth reaches another level, and the level of self-introspection that's required to pass through the next initiation is bigger than it was before. I mean, this is so mind-blowing, in the speed of which it's changing, that it's literally leveling the playing field. So my question is, someone like you who's been involved for so long and who has been an observer and a teacher, and I'm sure a student, what the hell's going on here? Like, I mean, do we just need to let go and just say, you know what, take me?
Yeah, you know, the more that we're aware of it, the more it's going to happen. You know, that whole resonance, the whole actual magnetic resonance in physics says that, you know, what we put out there is what we're going to get. So if we're living in a place where we believe that, you know, well, first of all, signs and symbols are everywhere. There's always information there. There's always information, right? So it's becoming more and more um, mind blowing because we're stepping out of the 4-dimensional box, literally.
Mhm.
We're understanding time in a different form. It's not linear, right? We're understanding space is non-local, that I can send a thought to my friend and can receive it. They've done experiments on that where from the moon they've sent thoughts and there's been a in the brain exactly that moment that thought's being sent. So, thought is non-local, consciousness is non-local, time is non-linear, it's more of a circle, which means it's happening all at once. So that means that we're living in all these different lifetimes in the same
Right.
moment. And it's only where I'm living in this moment right now, in this third dimension, talking to you, Todd Medina, on this internet form that's going around the world, which is so cool. And thank you for what you do on behalf of everybody that you allow to be seen and to be heard here. I think it's wonderful work you're doing. And I'm, just thank you. Namaste to that. But
You're very welcome. And I just want to say this, and there's a reason. There's no coincidences, and I want to thank you for saying that. And it's not because I need it, but it's because I receive a lot of letters and comments. And today I got one when I woke up this morning, and at first it pissed me off because I get a lot of people. Not a lot. They come in. I don't usually get a rise. I stopped commenting on things a long time ago, whether it be yay, thank you, or no, F off, right? And it was in regard to the show. And it was like, oh, it's all about you or whatever, right? And I took that in and I was like, if I look at the show, I have always understood Soulogy to be an attempted emulation of universal energy itself in our perfect imperfection. So it's also a copy of me and of you, right?
yes.
And as the days go by, I don't think it's the content, although the content's important. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that. It's about showing up. And as many times as I've not wanted to come on this show, including especially the last month, I'm told, get your ass up and go.
Yes.
And I'm like, what is the point of this? Am I being punished? No. People need to see the naked soul.
Yes.
And the naked soul is all of the above. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to project. It's okay this and that and this and that. It's getting past the point of judgment of ourselves and each other that I feel like I'm a part of a team to expand that. And there's no words, which again, going back to autism, angel syndrome, Asperger's, all these different things, ADD, and also PTSD, because to me, PTSD is like, okay, here's the situation. Here's the intention to bring alignment from those that love us and the individual's soul.
Yes.
And here's what happens as a result. See, that's what I'm interested in, because there's something about the other side, coming out the other side, and PTSD is such a great example, probably the universal example in our experience in this realm. But there's something that on the other side matches what the autistic brings in.
Yes.
Right? You see what I mean? I mean, there's like this. It reminds me of. I remember watching Out on the Limb with Shirley MacLaine years and years ago, like in the 90s or the 80s.
I love her. Yeah.
Right. And she's driving down this mountain road and she lets go of the wheel because her higher self tells her to, like we can all relate to, and it drives itself. See, whatever that is what I see in that kid 35 years ago, and what little I've seen through my own development post-traumatic and other people talking about it and posting it.
Yes.
We are freaking heroes here.
Yes. And
I mean,
that happens, what you're doing, two voices, that consciousness creates a third, two conscious create a third.
yes.
One of my best lessons was take nothing personal. Because if you projection, you started out talking about projection. Projection in psychology means that I'm projecting what I don't like about myself on what I don't like out there. So everything I don't like out there is a reflection of my own self,
Right.
my fears, or what's a part of my inside. So
Right.
take nothing personal. Wow, it was like so freeing, so whatever anybody says, I mean, it really was, it freed me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't have to get upset by anything. I can just choose the way I respond to it. Like, don't let anybody kick you out of that little vortex. I love the word vortex, the whirlwind of positive energy that, don't let people try to boot us out. And, the more obstacles you get, Todd, the more important your mission is.
Well, all I can say is I'm probably like many others, I'm getting a few, but that's a good point. I love what you say because it's very real. It's not woo woo, and it's just like, hey, this isn't gonna. In other words, the components of the equation that we're trying to put together, aren't going to change. The addition signs and division signs and multiplication signs and equal signs and all that is what we play with, but the components are not going to change. And I love what you said too about, one of the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz is don't take things personal.
Okay.
So
yes.
I had a conversation last night with someone, and it was really good because it was like, here's the energy that seems to be happening. We've seen it before. Let's approach this in a different way. So just having the conversation, which says it all to me because it's all about intention, right? It's not personal. And if I'm not taking things personal with other people, then I would imagine that there is a direct relationship to how I project or don't, or if I project or don't, because there's some level of responsibility. If I'm not taking anything personal, that means I'm containing it all within myself.
It's all you.
That's right. So I'm going to be less likely to look at someone else and go, oh, that's your fault.
You won't judge them anymore. You're going to say, oh, that part of me over there is really suffering.
Yeah.
That addict sitting over there. What can I do to help that? What does he really inside? So, and I give that to myself. Okay, I need compassion. I need love right now. I need to know that I belong. I need to know whatever those things are. It's always a message. Like I said, everything is our teacher. It's our reflection. But I think the most fascinating part is that, we're living in a holographic world. This is my creation. You're my creation, but I'm also yours. This always fascinates me that we're both at the co-creation aspect. We're all gods of our reality. That we're just the avatars here. Like, hey, pretty cool. We're just seeing down here.
I know.
But up there, we got the cartoon on the next level, and we got the point of, the 0 dimension we exist to. But here we are on these other levels, and it's kind of cool that we have these. We know that we do, and I think the more that we recognize it or believe it or test it, then the more it's going to keep happening.
That's where I'm at.
Literally does.
That's where I'm at. I'm at this point where I'm like, you know what? Let's rip the Band-Aids off. You hear enough people in these communities say many times, we've all done it. I'm tired, beam me up, get me the hell out of here. Now you're talking about at least a small minority in this world. And we know we're eternal. We know we're divinity. We know we're having to embody this, and there's no shortcuts, right? But why would we come all this way for nothing? Why not cultivate the imagination? Why not, instead of letting our imagination, for lack, like in so many words, run wild with these narratives and these tapes playing in our head of who did this to us and who did that to us? Why wouldn't we give it a shot to imagine at a fairy tale level? Okay, because if we think about the energetic transformations people have made, especially let's say over the last 10 years, they have had fairy tale transformations. They have had miracles, the miraculous, the magic. But why wouldn't we cultivate that level of construction, creative construction? Because I don't know about you, but is there anything that is more powerful than that as conscious creators is our own imagination, our non-physicality.
Everything. That's what Einstein said, you know. So, yeah. So I think it's, you know, our imagination creates it all. I do believe that's true.
Yeah.
Is there anything more powerful than that? Yeah, I don't think there is. I really think that's the major part of it, is that we do
Yeah.
create. Well, we're creating on so many levels, not just. So even here, when you meet someone that you think you know, you probably are in another sort of a situation dimensionally. You know, we're in this space, which now, if it's no time, there's obviously no space either. Or within this space, you know, we're sharing space with other aspects of other things, or, you know, angels or fairies or divine, you know, beings or ancestors who have crossed over, and all these different aspects of our own self. So it's so multidimensional. And I think we have to open our minds a lot more, you know, with the sacred spiral, taking ourselves into that mystery, you know, like the um, Wizard of Oz, you know, they start out on that spiral, the yellow brick road. It's the yellow golden spiral. I mean, there's signs everywhere. If you want to see them, open yourself up to the signs, and you'll start seeing the signs will come to you. They're already there. You just have to like acknowledge them, you know, in all different ways. I mean, everything. I think everything
I
is.
agree. Yeah, and that's such a good example too, because if you look at what a fascinating movie, you know, I mean, well, like who came up with that? And then you look at, you know, if you look into Disney, for instance, and I don't want to get into all that stuff, but the intentions purportedly involving the nefarious things that they might involve, which, you know, given all the information, it would only, you know, probably be very probable that a lot of that's true. Right. But here's the rub. As with that or with anything, whatever we're looking at, whatever we think we know, there's something in there, no matter how horrific it is, that by every degree of, you know, darkness, there's an equal degree of light.
Correct.
To be found. And and I think that that's probably the benefit of it's never them, it's always me.
And remember, the electricity is the positive and the negative charge.
Right.
So life have to have both. You know, we all have both. We all have the potential to do great negative, and we all have the potential to do great good.
That's right.
Your choice. It's always a choice. Every moment we have a choice. We have a choice. Just like you said before, I can think of something positive, and I can be like, yeah, I feel great. I'm like, you know, on top of the world. And then I could also think something else that will bring me into hell, and look around and say, oh my, so crazy. Oh my, we're at the end days. It depends on where it is. I mean, heaven and hell are within this 5-foot body. You know, that was what Christ said, and probably other masters have said. So heaven and hell are within us because we create it. So where do you spend your time? We can create it, literally create it, because we're living in the third dimension, which is the world of clay. Yeah. It's not that hard to do it. You just put the thought there and let it come. Yes.
And where are you at? Yeah. And like,
but it's also waves, because you're creating a momentum, you know, for what you're doing. I'm creating a momentum with what I'm doing. And so it's going to bring more of that. And if it's positive, I believe, you know, you're going to have lots of support, but then you're also going to have lots of obstacles on the way. And that's part of how you know that it's important.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of
I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a lag. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
No worries.
Oh yeah. Yes. I mean, this is the real stuff. I mean, I appreciate the channelings and the creations, and my God, I mean, they're windows to, you know, our potential or whatever. But you mentioned the multidimensionality, and you mentioned the human thing, and I say this to myself over and over and over. Okay, I get that. Just as recently as last night, as I'm laying there connecting. Why am I 99% of the time conscious in this aspect with what seems to be less than 1% of my multidimensionality, although that's changing for all of us. There must be something extremely important. In yesterday, I had somebody come on and they said to me something I never heard before. They said, in other words, there's an unachieved potential from these realms that we create. We look to expand. We're just the universe in a smaller form that's expanding through our own, right? And the whole idea of ascending, right? I mean, we're in this very dense atmosphere where the potential of transformation seems to be, based on a lot of people's channeling, far greater than it's ever been before.
Yes.
And that emphasis on the human is really, we say here, the human is the hero. That has a lot of different connotations. But I want to ask you, before we get out of here in a few minutes, in terms of your personal journey, and I know that it sounds like it's like some people that have come on here, you were kind of awake, right? Before that was even a term. Has there been anything or things in your life on a personal level that really jolted you, that really made you not put the human and its aspects at arm's length, but actually just pull it in, hug it, and say, we're going to beat this thing, we're going to align, we're going to expand, we're going to do this, we're kicking ass and taking names? Was there anything in your life or times in your life where that kind of relates?
I feel that way now.
Good.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've felt that way all the time. I don't think I remember a time not feeling that. Although, there's times, obviously, in struggle. I had a near-death experience once, so that was an interesting, life-changing kind of a thing. And I did experience some of the consciousness being non-local, but like omniscience and omnipresence, and some other kind of things that occurred during that. Um, um, that made me look at life a lot differently, you know. So, but yeah, I feel ready now. That's why I'm trying to start these different programs and trying to do, get methods out to the world, the healing that I do on a smaller scale and a healing on a bigger scale. Um, we have to reach people right now, and I think that's part of it. I mean, yes, people are waking up, but there are so many still sleeping, and then so many who are awake and go back to sleep a moment later, you know. So in small ways and in big ways, we need to do things to just bring ourselves together into that vibrational frequency of love and joy, laughter, and and feeling so good, and passions are to really dive into that and give ourselves the time for it. I mean, there's an analogy of the bees, the worker bees that work for the queen, and they're all very much the same. They're just worker bees, and they're doing their job, and it's very important. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you've got, you keep going a little further, you can get to the magician who creates. You can be the queen and have everybody serve you. But going to the higher levels where we create worlds, that little hexagon, there's no coincidence, that hexagonal shape in the bees, hive, it's a very important, part of our existence, that connection with that particular shape, which is a very strong shape. But I guess, the thing I'm trying to say is that we're tapping into parts of ourselves and aspects of ourselves that we don't have anything to compare it to. We don't have any kind of, you're looking back and wait a minute, history started here and ended here, right? I mean, there was, but now we have to keep expanding because we're learning so much more.
Yeah.
And
I like what you said. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's, aside from the music and art, some of the art, I feel like it's coded. Like this is one that, you can see my art though. I don't know.
Wow.
Else, but
that's pretty, that says a lot.
And there's, yeah.
Let's see.
And anyway, there's different, like the way that it comes through, you know, with the music and the art. I'm creating digital video games now for like using it, developing the intuition.
You're into all kinds of stuff.
I am. And I love it.
Now it sounds like you're connecting them all together too.
Yes. Well, I'm an expressive arts therapist, so that was something that I was, you know, trained in as well. But the digital video games it's called anticitap, so they would be using your psychic abilities to anticipate what's coming. So I'm just, you know, sort of in the process looking for a game coder to help me develop, you know, bring those things out to the world. But I'm also very interested in co-creating with others now, and that's what seems to be happening now.
Yes.
Finding each other. We're finding the support. We need the support. It's not easy. It was never easy to be this way as a child. I was very much seen as an outcast. I had a lot of loneliness. Like, what am I doing here? You know, like I belong somewhere else. This is not my, you know, where I'm supposed to be. It didn't feel like. And I think a lot of them come here, and the gravity's thick, and the food is wonderful. But, you know, that's
what I keep saying.
You know,
I'm kidding.
One good thing, but you know, the gravity's very hard, and the meanness is hard. The meanness, because and that's what I think. Going back to the autistic population, they're teaching us about kindness. You know, important it is.
Yeah, I mean, the level of the programs, like, you know, I remember 10 years ago when I woke up and I kept hearing, "Don't blame other people." What was it? No, it was don't lie to yourself. Don't make excuses, and don't blame anything external, which, you know, primarily is people, right?
Yes.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of hardcore, you know. That's kind of like, you know, wait a minute, unfair or whatever. And then you get to the point where you realize how futile it is to externalize, and then it becomes even more valuable, because you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm externalizing. That person's my excuse. That person's where I blame this situation. Circumstances, consequences are the same damn thing. It's a matter of where we're at and where we're going. It doesn't matter what got us to this point, what code was provided, whatever form that took. And was it a trauma, or was it a weekend session with ayahuasca? It doesn't matter. You know, Mary Rodwell comes on a lot. She's fascinating. And she's been doing this since the 90s, way out there in front of everybody. And she said this one time about how they had done this, some friends of hers had done this study at a university. And they were studying the process and the impact of a shamanic journey, right? Now, they then took that information and they compared it to another study that they did of people, of the process and the outcome of ET visitation / abduction. And from a, you know, what a spirit scientific sense, they were one and the same thing, because they brought the person to this place that was
expanding their mind.
Yes. That was a you know, like a catalyst, and the experience itself, an initiator, like an ayahuasca experience or like a trauma. It seems like there's a huge connection to the diminishing impact of the illusion of pain, suffering, and trauma, directly connected to our level of expansion and awareness and flow, you know, and let's just say comfortable creation, right? I mean, in the caveat, you know, I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with nobody else,
right?
And if I'm throwing shit on the wall about somebody or something, I am not
all about you.
Right. I mean, it's not about telling the world what's wrong with it, right?
Right.
It's about getting to this place where we see no wrong. And I know that's a big, tough, loud, but imagine being that autistic kid, coming into this world and seeing what you're seeing, or people that we might call mentally afflicted who have a window into the other side. Imagine that. There's always somebody out there that quote unquote, has it worse. So get off the pity pot. You know what I mean? I mean, this is Todd talking to Todd. It's not
Showing
Todd.
dimensions. They're showing us dimensions of us too.
Yeah.
So they are us. Everybody is us. So that's part of what you can let go, drop the judgment, because everybody's you. And if we're just particles, then particles held together with a certain frequency of vibration, maybe the name, Carmelina Mosher, has a vibration that's holding me together. It's our thoughts that hold us together.
Yeah.
Really, literally is. So my excitement about what, as we start to get more abilities or develop more abilities and utilize and test them and try them out, is that, we won't need to depend on lots of things that we're depending on now that hold us in a box, that hold us sort of bound to other things, such as, electricity or, all those things. If we could manifest anything literally with our thoughts, then that will be a great time. Although, someone say, well, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to be manifesting things left and right. They're already doing it, really. So it's mass consciousness that creates the mass experience, and maybe it's been slower that we haven't noticed it, but I do believe that's something that really does. We all have the ability to start doing and start testing it. Try it out. Try it. Just smallest things, from a button to a castle. You can manifest anything. You can create it all with your life experience and your thought. And if it's peace or it's joy, and there are other things that we find to help us with those things, but we decide which thing is going to work. Still, even in the end, if it's a thing that's going to help me, I decide, this technique is going to cure me. This is what's going to help me. But that's because I believe it's going to. And in my near experience, I was told I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30. I was 25 years old when my accident. I was going to be in a wheelchair, and my arm was dislocated, and the nerve was cut, and I was so upset when the doctor said these things. I was like, "You're wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong." And so I started chanting. Became a Buddhist. I was chanting. I chanted 3 hours a day. So 3 months later, the nerves regrew. So I created my own miracle for myself. And I'm still dancing right now at my age. No wheelchair, no cane. I'm doing yoga. I'm doing all the things, cross country runner,
Wow.
So we can overcome anything, really. And it's really what we decide. It's what we do. So we're so much more powerful than we know. And I think that's part of the waking up. The waking up, that we have the ability, and there's so much around us. And I saw someone's comment about sacred geometry, but numbers and geometry are everywhere. It's the colors and the senses, everything that we experience, it's all related somehow to this sort of geometrical forms, that make up everything. And if it's just the ether, the spheres, we have so many spheres, and the cell, the sun, the moon, everything in that spherical shape. I painted a lot of spheres, in my time, and I still do. But those, that ether is the space between everything, space between dimensions. So that's a whole thing right there. And what about that? There's something in there, that we don't even think about that, right? Space.
Yeah, the in-between world.
All those things, space between the atoms too.
Yeah.
That's ether. So it's
think about. I mean, that's just crazy, right? Like you have an atom, and what is it? The nucleus is less than 1% of its solidity, and everything else is nothing. Well, you know what I mean. Well, if you think about that, just that alone, right? And you think about the construction atomically of yourself. I mean, we're it on one hand, it's wow, how small am I? And then on the other hand, it's like, wow, how big am I?
How amazing.
Like, it's
together.
Yeah.
Or how amazing that we're even here. That we were the one little sperm that made it, that we won that first race in the womb. We won that very first race, and we were the one that the egg allowed in too.
That's right. Fastest out of 7 million, right? 8 million. I saw something the other day, and it was, I wish I could remember what it was, or who it was, but they talked about that, and I don't know if it's accurate, but it sounds right, and to me energetically, that the egg, which again goes to the non-physicality, right? But that the egg sends out a signal specific to that sperm.
Yes.
And from an energetic standpoint, metaphor, whatever, it makes sense to me. Like that connection was made, because it's not linear, was made prior to that happening in the physical. And here we go with manifestation again, our instant manifestation.
Yes.
Fascinating. We could talk to you for all kinds of stuff. We'll have to get together again later this year.
Absolutely. I would love that.
So you're doing some things in Connecticut, it sounds like, locally as well as online.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the way that you present yourself in this, in this time of such change, where templates are dropping left and right, and we're being asked to show up, and you show up with the mindset from the previous day's reality and truth, and you show up, and everything's different, and then the camera gets turned on. You know what I mean, metaphorically. But I appreciate your energy. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing, or anything else that you want to do? If you want to do a blessing or a song or poem or anything you want to share with us, the floor is yours.
Well, okay, so I'm an expressive arts therapist, for those of you who I noticed are asking what I do. You can find me on thecarmelina.com. You can find my artwork on Instagram, Purple Lotus Woman, or probably under Carmelina Mosher as well. eyesofwings.org is the organization that we're creating for Healing Arts Center for healers and others who need to be healed. And that will be a PMA, which is a private membership association. And playwithgrace.com is the theater program with autism. We have some on YouTube as well. We don't have a YouTube channel just yet, but we will. So Play with Grace.
Okay.
Anticitap.com is my game company, where the digital video games that I'm creating, I've got a few of those, and some cards that I've created, and the fairy tales that I want to put online, the musical opus that I want to put. It's sort of interactive music, so I need like a digital genius for that. So but it's nice to have a lot of support right now. We're supporting each other. Happy to be here to support you too. And let's see, a song. I'd like to do one with a little bit of meaning, but I have this one client who always requests this one song from me. So let me think. Maybe I'll do that one.
It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. Thank you, Bella, for putting up the links.
Maybe I can just say the words to one of my songs, because I think the words are
That's fine. Yeah, that'll work.
So when we're together, we can do anything. We can take flight. Take a deep breath and learn how to smile now. Love is surrounding. You're never alone. What we believe is what we receive. So it's time to create what we want to achieve. When we walk with courage, we are invincible. When we live with joy, our fears fade away. All of our power lives in this moment. We have a choice to change what we feel. What we believe is what we receive. So it's time to create what we want to achieve. And then I guess it goes back to the other verse. So
I love that. That's nice.
Thank you. And you can Carmelina Mosher on Spotify and Apple Music and Reverb Nation. You can find my songs. The songs from the Play with Grace program, which is the autistic theater program, have become music out there online as well. I've put the songs out there. Since they are songs of joy, they are getting a lot of a good recognition. So
far out.
Our next show is we're having a garden groove here in the garden. We do social gatherings for healers here. So you can reach me at carmelina.biz or thecarmelina.com.
Excellent. And where are you in Connecticut?
I am in Hamden, Connecticut.
Hamden.
It's right New Haven, right on the New Haven line.
Oh, you're by New Haven. So you're at the end of the road, right? Isn't that? Yeah, because I remember taking a ferry from Long Island to Connecticut, and I think the first big city was New Haven, wasn't it? Or what am I wrong?
Right.
Yes. That's right. Okay. Yeah. That was an expensive Uber trip. All the choices that you have to make when you're in a suitcase as a hobo. What that's all then, and this is now. It's fabulous meeting you. You're a powerful, beautiful, brave, beloved sister and soul. And I look forward to connecting with you again later in the year if you're open to it and talking about such, so many different things we can talk about with you. But I really appreciate you coming on and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us. Yeah, thank you.
Well.
And yeah, so until the next time, is that cool? I mean, if you're open to it, yeah.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, very cool. So we'll be back in a while, and we have another show tonight in 4 hours. But I think in between, we'll just have to do something creative. How about that? Thank you so much, Carmelina. Beautiful name, beautiful soul, beautiful lady, beautiful sister. Peace out, everybody.